Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have the opportunity to work on a reel, and I think we're going to call this one Why Does It Fail? This one was sent in by Thomas. It's not moving. It's a Pflueger Trion. It looks like a relatively new reel, and we're going to take it apart and then we'll figure out what we can do next, because a lot of these times these reels may have broken parts that can't get replaced. Sometimes they have replacement parts that make it too expensive. And well, sometimes you just never know unless you open it up to figure out what the damage is and do a diagnosis on it to figure out whether you can give this reel a second chance. Well, that's what I'm going to do today. The gloves are off. I don't expect to find much dirt and debris in the lake in there. All I know is I can't turn the reel. I got a little bit of movement and that's it if I try to do anything with it, and you certainly do not want to pressure it to break anything else that may remain. Well, we're going to start by removing the exterior pieces, see if we can get into the case to figure out what's going on. And while I do that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, please use that notification button. That'll let you know when I'm posting and what I'm posting. So today I'm working on a broken Pflueger Trion reel. Tomorrow may be a round bait caster like an Abreu Ambassador. It may be a large trolling reel like a Penn International, and it may be a bassin reel. You never know. So if you hit that notification button, you'll see what I'm posting. You'll see if that's something that interests you in terms of learning about the reel, or maybe you even have the reel and can use it as a guide. And if you do that notification button, that's the best way to figure out which ones might appeal to you. So I took the star adjuster, or the drag adjuster knob off, and removed the spool. When I do my diagnosis, I want to start right there. I want to see if it was the spool that somehow may have caused that, and it's not. The rotor is not moving, even though the spool is off. This one says it's got 7 ball bearings in it. Wow, okay. Well, the 7 ball bearings in there did not stop this from failing. We're going to remove the click ratchet next. There's a little set of bump washers underneath here, a little spacer. So you want to notice the sequence of these, and you want to know how to put it back together again. So it's always a good idea to take pictures as you go. So take a picture before you remove that. Know that the small spacer goes below, and then you have the click ratchet. And next up, then we want to get to the nut here. And here's an example of why I tell you use deep sockets and keep different types of tools around. This one either had a metal eating bug in here, or somebody just tried to get over the case with a wrench like this, couldn't get it, and well, probably just buttoned it up. I'm not quite sure what they did with that, but regardless, deep socket wrenches are the way to go when you have a lip on your rotor like this one. I have a piece of broken line on that one. All right, well, we're going to continue. We're going to take the hold down off, and when I take the pieces and parts off, I like to put them into a parts tray. That helps me keep track of where the pieces and parts are when it's time to reinstall. Let's see if we can lift this up. We can. That's your tie down clip, and all of those are going to go into one corner of the tray. Next, let's go find that deep socket that's going to help us get that off. That appears to be like a 12 millimeter maybe. See what this one is. That one's not correct, so we just keep trying. I keep a little basket on my bench here with all my sockets in them. When you do this, a quick turn says that came off easy enough. So I like to break the nut with the ratchet, but then just turn it by hand from there. I'm going to take that nut, put that in the tray as well. Now we can remove the rotor. Let's see if that has any indication. Well, we're still stuck, right? We're still stuck. And this one has, interestingly enough, it has an anti-reverse override spring. And I don't know what's happened to this reel in the past, but that is one buggered up spring there. And I'm wondering if this reel will turn if I move the adjuster. No. All right, so we're going to continue on then. What we can do at this point is we can remove the case, but in order to remove that case, let's remove the handle first. The handle comes off in a clockwise manner. This was not spinning, so that's usually an indication that it is a screw-on handle. We'll move the rotor off to the side. We'll put the spool and that right on there. And you needed to remove that rotor because they're hiding a screw up here, and sometimes they hide one in the back. There's 3 case screws that I'm aware of. There's probably one more here. And my thinking on this bump guard is that if I remove this bottom screw here, that's going to have a clip underneath it for the bump guard to hang on to. Thinking that. Not seeing that. There is a little indentation with the stud here, so maybe between the two, that's the way to release this. I always get a little nervous with these bump guards because they can snap easily, and well, they're just not fun if you break them. So I just used a little micro driver here to see if I couldn't get that off. Getting it off a little bit, I did confirm that there is a tag there, and let's just see if we can't move this out. You got to be careful with these because if you break them, chances are you're not going to find those pieces again. All right, so as it turns out, we have a screw that's down here. It's a rough threaded screw, and that does hold that bump guard in place. I'm going to take that screw and I'm going to put it right with that bump guard so that I know when it's time to reinstall that that's where it goes. Let's get that ratchet off the table for now. Let's go remove the other 2 of these. And I'm not liking what I'm seeing here because it appears to be that there might be some rust in this reel. So sometimes that's an indication that maybe the reel got dunked along the way. This one, interestingly enough, has that spring on it. That good old buggered up spring. But it doesn't have the override switch. So it looks like maybe at one point this was had an override to it, but no longer in manufacture, and they simply took a little cover to cover that up. Unfortunately, that anti-reverse override up there is pretty shot, but that being the case, we may just tie it off. Have to see. All right, well, there's 2 different screws here then. The case screw up top is a very short screw, and then this one is the same size as the other for the lower case. You need to note that when it's time to reassemble. If you try to put that short screw into one of these holes, it won't grab. If you try to put the long one up top there, it'll be too long and will protrude. So bring the case out here. Solid metal case. The bearing's turning in that one. Here's your main gear. And we're still stuck. We're still stuck. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so we've kind of narrowed down the chase. This is where the action is in terms of what's broken. So let's come up top here, finish the disassembly of this reel, and figure out why or what parts are needed here. Based on that spring being all distorted, it would say that there's something going on in the instant anti-reverse. I'm going to take those 3 screws out again. We're going to put those onto the table, and we're going to confirm that they're all the same size, and they are not the same size, interestingly enough. 2 of them are the same size. One's a little bit longer, and unfortunately I wasn't paying attention there. I'm a victim of my own advice. We're going to have to figure out which one needs the long slot. Okay, the shield can come up. This is your gear assembly now. This is what I said before. I saw rust in here when I was kind of looking through. I don't know if the bearing is rusted to this or if it's something more than that. We should be able to remove everything off the top now. That's famous last words. We have the axle shaft. We might as well take that off. And we know that we have the failure in this reel is in the anti-reverse clutch system. Let's just take that out because if we do have a chance, we try to put this back together. Again, I'll find another corner of my parts tray. I'll put the crosswind block, axle shaft, and piece in there. This does have a nice engineering feel to it. We have a crosswind block here that actually depends on that back end drive. You can see it over here, and it meshes the gears here, so it takes some of the pressure off of that gear. Just going to go in the back here, make sure that this bearing is working. It is. So here's the issue right there. We have a bearing in that top corner that's seized. You can see I can't turn the shaft. Well, that should be an easy enough fix if we can get it off. How do you get that off? Always have fun with these. We're going to soak that with a penetrating oil. And we're going to try and loosen that up. Now, if that's the only issue with this, other than a rather damaged anti-reverse override spring that's still on this thing, then we may be able to get away with it. I'm looking down below here. This bearing is not turning very easily either. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this bearing as leverage. I'll put this into a vise and I'll tap down with a dead blow hammer on the top of this. Well, I'm not going to be totally reckless on that. No matter what you try to use to tap down, you risk breaking the threads. So I'm going to use the rotor nut up top for that. And now this is unfortunately is going to be off camera, so let me explain to you what I will do. I have that penetrating oil is kind of giving me some lubrication. We've tipped the top out. I'm going to get the vise so that it sits on just the rims of these two bearings, which are going to need to get replaced, and I should be able to start tapping that down. Again, this will be off camera. I do apologize for that. My vise is hooked into my bench. I can't move that. All right, so you'll hear it in the background now. And you can see that I've pushed that through with just two light tap taps. Well, that should have broken the collar free up top. Indeed it has. Then we have our anti-reverse clutch. Then we have what is an absolute mess here. This is the bottom bearing and the shield. And that's the collar that goes over. Let's remember that that comes off underneath the anti-reverse clutch. This should be a nice shiny metal to ride inside your anti-reverse clutch, and this bearing is shot. So we've got two frozen bearings. Shame on them. They use steel bearings. Shame on the owner. I suspect that this one wound up in the deep sea and wasn't cleaned out. And I'm going to have to figure out how to get that out. Well, that's for another day. What we're going to use this for is why do fishing reels fail? This one failed because on the interior side of this reel, the bearings failed. And I think we can probably get this one back. We're going to have to figure out what to do with this spring. Going to have to get some additional bearings here. And we can get this one back and going again. This is not damaged. The gears were not damaged. Just the issues that we have with the collar sleeve, the anti-reverse, and the two bearings on the stack. Very unusual because the water didn't get into the case. It stopped up top here. So, well, we'll see what we can do. For now, that's why this reel has failed. That's a little bit of a look into how you diagnose the problems that you can encounter with reels and how to try and get them better so that they can get a second chance to keep fishing. I hope you've enjoyed that. To our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do to keep us safe. To everyone, please have some fun fishing, but don't be afraid to take the time to service your tackle at the end of the trip. Wash it off with fresh water. Make sure it's fresh water. One of the best ways to do that, just take the reel off the rod and put it in a pail or a cup that will accommodate it, and just fill up fresh water. Let it sit for an hour or so. That'll dissolve the micro salts and sands, and When you're done with that, you can use a product like a WD-40, the WD meaning water displacement. Use that to kind of oil down some of the parts to prevent rust, and that'll go a long way to you keeping these wheels running for a long time to come. All right, that's all I can do for the moment. I hope you've enjoyed the video. To everybody who's been watching, thank you. Again, if you haven't subscribed, why don't you try that? This is set up to teach you how to do the fishing wheel service and repairs, and I'd love to have you along for the long-term ride. I think what we're going to do on this one, interestingly enough, we're going to run this one down, see if we can't tap it out this way. So thanks again for watching, and have a great day.